Until midday, this is the morning program with Gary Adshead on 882 6PR, the voice of Perth.
Now, you might hear me throwing on the Luddite hat, the grumpy old man, now that I'm past 50. I'm allowed to be, just past 50. Hat. I might be wearing both of them during this next conversation because regardless of what's happening with these particular images and how they're getting into the public arena, I am absolutely staggered that girls as young as 14 would be taking photos of themselves nude or scantily clad and then sending them to someone they want to see it. And I'm not just talking 14-year-olds, we're talking upwards, of course, into women and men. And this issue that they would be taking a photo of themselves and then sending it to someone and perhaps backing it up in the cloud and wondering why at some point all these images are becoming public, and they're becoming public through nefarious means, granted, but anything that you send through a internet service provider, you have to understand, runs the risk of becoming public. Now, it's happened again. As is being reported now, the police are now investigating a second case where a whole lot of nude photos of girls as young as 14 in Western Australia has been posted on a website. Involves all sorts of people, girls from private schools and upwards and so on and so forth. It's happened again. Police are investigating it. The question is, what do we do about it, other than the bloody obvious, which is don't take photos and send them off through cyberspace because you don't know where they might end up and what could happen to them. Paul Litherland is from Surf Online Safe, and he's been following this developing story, and he joins me now. G'day, Paul.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Good. Can you just go through us, first of all, where do the images that are now being abused, if you like, by being put out there, where are they coming from?
The images are mainly coming from, obviously, individuals, and sadly we're talking pretty much 98% of these are young women. Most of the images are coming from their original, I suppose, sharing of those photos, either within a relationship, I suppose, with their partner, or just through intimate sharing through their peer network.
So then, okay, if I sent a photo to my wife of me for whatever reason, and it would never happen, she'd probably just be aghast, a nude, how can that then become someone else's property?
Well, number one, if we're going from device to device, so within a relationship from partner to partner, you would assume, Gary, that your wife would morally do the right thing by you and not share that image. Now, this is where most of these issues are coming in. These girls are trusting their partner or trusting who they sent it to that they're not going to send it on. But unfortunately, that's just not happening. In some circumstances, and most of it, again, we say that most of these are being received by boys. Some of these boys are doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. They're being honest and they're going, no, I'll keep it on my device and I won't share it. But unfortunately, we all know young boys, especially teenagers, they're just not going to do that. And this is where pretty much all of these issues are coming in. And especially with this drive, and obviously previously as well, what we're finding now is you're getting a number of boys and young men around Australia who are now actually contacting the senders of these, the people who've sent on these photos for more. For other girls as well. So this is where it's getting really out of hand now.
And people are complying with that?
Yep, and this is where websites are now being created where someone can post, oh, look, this is a girl, my ex-girlfriend, this is her name, and other guys are jumping on and saying, oh, have you got any more, have you got any more? And this is where it's just getting ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
So the websites that they're appearing on, which obviously the police are onto again with this second one, are they masked, the faces of the girls, or are they perfectly identifiable?
Some are. Some have got at least some moral ground, I suppose, and covering faces and stuff. But others, Gary, and I was sitting down having a look at some this morning, obviously from an investigative point of view, thinking, wow, I can actually identify some of these girls, not only by their name, but also now I can identify them through their Facebook account, through their suburbs, even the schools they go to. So this is where it's getting absolutely morally corrupt in regards to these boys saying, oh, look, she goes to this school, maybe, and then they're going one step beyond that, Gary, to contacting other boys, perhaps as an example in that girl's year group, saying, look, see if you can get some more of her, see if you can get some more of her. This is just absolutely disgusting, in my opinion.
What do we do about it, Paul?
Well, unfortunately, there's really not much we can do from an overall perspective. I mean, the website we're discussing here, it's actually being run through a Russian server, so that is going to be quite difficult. Number two, it's being hosted by an organisation or a company in the US, so they may not even be aware that their that the web space they're being provided is being used for this purpose. So the police will have to go through all that process to contact these organisations. Hopefully they'll take them down. But the problem we have, Gary, is it doesn't matter where you post them. The people who are posting them are still in possession of them. So I can create another page, I can create another little website somewhere and continue to share these photos time and time again, and then the police have got to go through the whole process again. This is where it's very difficult, very difficult.
So the reality is, for whatever reason, and you'd need a PhD to figure this out, but we have this view that at that moment in time when we record our nudity, we record our body image, we record our private parts on a photograph or a video, we have this strange view that I can send that can be sent on and won't end up anywhere. How on earth are people being so naive? I mean, we all know that the websites, the websites that are out there, the internet, is just being mined day in, day out for material that might be of an explicit nature. So why don't kids who are supposed to be savvy about this technology, much more savvy than I'll ever be, why don't they think, well, hang on, this could end up anywhere?
Because they're teens, Gary, and that's not being critical of them, and that's not saying they're stupid. It's just we all took risks like that when we were young, and unfortunately that exposure, both literally and figuratively speaking, is becoming stronger and stronger because these are the networks our kids are using. Devices are more popular, and even to a degree, some young women are happy to express themselves in this way, and I understand. And again, as you just said, I'm no psychologist, but it's about just understanding that. But I think where we need to push beyond that is, and it sounds horrible, but to a degree, I think we need to concede to defeat that our young people are going to make these decisions and make these errors of judgment. What we need to do is we need to start pushing the onus back onto the people who are choosing to send on these photos and abuse that trust of these young girls, again, in particular. Now, a number of these photos are intimate photos. So, and I spoke to you last time, Gary, about that legislation that's just been introduced into Victoria, where if someone chooses to now send on that intimate image without the consent of the person who posted it or who created it, that should be a crime. And this is where I think a lot of these issues would start to minimise. Not that we're going to ever stop young ladies sending nudes. I think that's going to be very difficult. But at least if she chooses to send it on to a partner, he now has to make that decision. If I send this on to a couple of mates or post it on a website, I could be held criminally responsible for that. And I think that's where we need to have the change because, unfortunately, it's a culture and I believe this is going to be the only generational problem that we'll have with this, Gary, hopefully. But it's just a matter of trying to get that message out that this is morally corrupt. It's not about, oh, come on, it's her fault, she shouldn't have sent it. It's not about that. It's about understanding that.
See, we were having the discussion this morning, Paul, and I said at the beginning, I'll whack the Luddite hat on, I'll whack the old fuddy-duddy hat on, and I will, because, quite frankly, this was not a problem. This was not an issue that was even being discussed in any way prior to the advent of the internet. And I could go on and on about other things, online predators, so on and so forth. This great tool that we have now in this modern era has brought upon it many, many social issues that I could rattle off, So the question is, when do we start to understand that the internet and all its technology and the way that we can send photos of ourselves instantly through the cyberspace, that it's not all good? When are we going to stop? When are we going to start to lose our love affair with it?
I don't think we will, basically because of the massive amount of information and the great resources that are available out there. And I made the analogy to you earlier in the year or last year, Gary, where the motor vehicle, the car is one of the greatest inventions, but used appropriately and used properly, it's brilliant. But again, it can kill people and it cause grief. So I think where things need to change is, I believe the internet needs to start taking a little bit more responsibility. And we use this as an example. Now, these web providers, the people who are providing this space online, should know that their sites are being used in this manner. More importantly, they should take a little bit more responsibility for that. And we talk about social networking. It's easy to sit there and go, well, we're not responsible for our users. I think that needs to change. We need to start taking a little bit more respect. If someone is doing something wrong in a shopping centre, then there's avenues there. There's security guards. There's people here who can help out and change that behaviour. But online, you can do whatever you want, mate. And this is where it needs to change. And it is. Don't get me wrong, mate. It is changing, but it's going to take a while. So it's just a matter of trying to push that ownership or onus back onto individuals to try and just understand the risks. And hopefully things like this will minimise. But
schools and parents need to sit down these kids and say, are you mad? Are you insane? You would send a photo of yourself in that position and not think it might come out? Yeah.
And communication is massive. This is where it starts. And it's not talking to our kids at 16 and 17 years of age. It's talking to them when they're 7, 8, 9, when they're starting to get on, to understand the risks. And that's what it's all about, mate. And hopefully these things will change. But yeah, all
right. In the meantime, we're confronted by it. I do appreciate your time, Paul.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for the call, and all the best to your listeners as well. Thank you.
Paul Litherland there from Surf Online Safe, and he deals with these specific issues, so you can get on Surf Online Safe.